A week before our wedding, my fiancé, who was on a business trip abroad, called to break up with me. I didn't cry or cause a scene. I simply replied, "As you wish." 5 days later, he rushed back, travel-worn, with a guilt-ridden intern trailing behind him. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. Jason lost a game of rock paper scissors that day, so I dared him to call and break up with you." I calmly told her to disappear. Jason fumbled to wipe the tears from the corner of her eyes before turning to glare at me. "It was just a joke. What are you freaking out about?" I lowered my eyes, silent. "The wedding is already cancelled, and now you're telling me it was a joke." I watched as Jason shielded Angie behind him as if I were some kind of monster. He was so careful, so protective. It used to be me he protected that way. Angie peeked out from behind him, her eyes full of defiance, yet her tone was so aggrieved that even I felt I couldn't blame her. "Sarah, it's my fault. Don't blame Jason. If you're really angry, just yell at me." Jason's expression softened instantly. "How is it your fault? We agreed we'd face this together. Don't mind her. It's all my fault for spoiling her so much that she throws a tantrum over every little thing." I fought back tears. Jason once told me that with him around, I could be myself without fear, that I would never have to suffer any grievance. Now, just by asking Angie to leave, I was throwing a tantrum. I let out a sneer. "In that case, I wish you two the best, a bitch and a dog, a match made to last forever." Angie's face flushed with shame, and her eyes reddened. Jason's face darkened as he glared at me, looking as if he wanted to tear me to pieces. "Sarah, you're really pushing it, aren't you?" I bit my lip, refusing to cry in front of them. Suppressing my anger, I said in a cold voice, "Aren't you leaving? Or are you staying so I can officiate your wedding right here and now?" Jason trembled with rage, wrapped his arm around Angie, and slammed the door on his way out. Large tears fell. When I finally unclenched my fists, I saw that my palms were bruised purple from how tightly I had been squeezing them. Everyone says the 7-year itch is a difficult hurdle to cross. It turns out they were right. He no longer had the patience to coax me. Jason didn't return until the next morning. His expression was weary and tinged with impatience. He placed a food container in front of me. "All right, stop being angry. You haven't had breakfast, have you? I brought you some congee." I didn't say a word. I opened the container, glanced inside, and tossed it into the trash. It was seafood congee. I have a severe seafood allergy, but Jason once mentioned that his young assistant loved it. Seeing this, an undeniable panic flashed in his eyes, but he tried to sound tough. "The chef must have made a mistake. I'll take you out to eat after we try on the wedding dress." I smiled faintly. "We don't need to try on a wedding dress today. I've already cancelled the wedding." Perhaps my coldness provoked him. His eyes filled with rage, and he kicked over the chair in front of me. "Sarah, don't be so dramatic. Aren't you afraid I'll actually call this wedding off?" He didn't give me a chance to answer before turning and heading into the bathroom. The truth is, before this, I was afraid. 2 months ago, he was working late, and I went to his office to surprise him. Instead, I found him with Angie on his lap, kissing her with a fierce, possessive passion. His eyes held a raw desire I hadn't seen directed at me in a very long time. A chill ran through me, and I stumbled away. I knew then that the man I had spent 7 years with had completely betrayed me. The only reason I didn't confront him on the spot was because my brother, who had leukemia, still needed treatment. I sat at the table, took out a sheet of paper, and wrote the words "I owe you." Just as I finished, Jason came out of the bathroom. He wrapped his arms around me from behind and placed a property deed in front of me. "Sarah, a wedding gift. Do you like it?" I opened it, glanced at it, then closed my eyes and tossed it back to him. I had just seen the very same property deed on Angie's social media feed yesterday. He was certainly efficient, housing his wife and his mistress in the same building. He wasn't even worried we'd find it disgusting. Seeing I wasn't happy, he didn't get angry. A gentle kiss landed on my brow. "What? You don't like it? We can pick out another one when you have time." "No need." I cut him off and handed him the IOU I had just written. "This is for my brother's treatment costs over the past few years. I'll find a way to pay you back." His face slowly darkened. He tore the IOU to shreds and threw the pieces in my face. "Sarah, my patience has its limits. If you keep this up, don't expect me to pay for your brother's future treatments." "You don't know, do you?" I interrupted him, fighting back tears as I looked up at him. "My brother, he's gone. Half a month ago, on the first night of Jason's business trip, the hospital called. My brother's condition was critical, and they were trying to save him. It was pouring rain that night. I didn't even have time to grab an umbrella as I ran to the hospital. I was in such a hurry I lost a shoe along the way. The doctor said he needed surgery as soon as possible. They had even found a suitable bone marrow match, but it would cost 500,000. I called Jason. Angie was the one who answered. Sarah, Jason drank too much. He's already asleep. I didn't question why she was answering his phone. I just cried and begged her to wake him up, to tell him I needed money. When Jason took the phone, he was extremely annoyed. Sarah, it's late. Whatever it is, we'll talk tomorrow. He hung up before I even had a chance to speak. When I called back, no one answered. I sat in the hospital corridor, hugging my knees, from midnight until dawn, until I watched my brother take his last breath in front of me. I knelt before him and cried until I fainted. When I opened my eyes again, I knew it was all over. Jason's head was bowed, his face pale. He didn't ask why I hadn't told him. He couldn't have forgotten how many times I had called that night. Unfortunately, no one had answered. When he looked up again, the guilt on his face was gone. Sarah, you should be grateful. If it weren't for me, your brother wouldn't have lived this long. His casual tone instantly ignited my rage. I raised my hand and, with all my strength, slapped him across his indifferent face. For 7 years, I had wanted to do that after every argument, but every time, I was the one who swallowed my pride and made peace. Jason's expression changed drastically. He pointed to the door and told me to get out. He thought I would kneel and beg him not to throw me out, just like before, but he seemed to have forgotten. My brother was gone. I had no reason to beg him anymore. I grabbed my already packed suitcase and left without a backward glance. I met Jason abroad. He was the disgraced son of a wealthy family, cut off financially after an argument with his parents. I was a student working part-time to support myself. Anyone could see we were from different worlds. When he cornered me at the school gate to confess his feelings, I just rolled my eyes at him. He sent me flowers, which I threw in the trash right in front of him. I told him he would eventually go back to inherit his family's business, so he shouldn't waste his time playing love games with me. But he gritted his teeth and stubbornly stayed with me for 3 years. Just before graduation, I received news that my brother, my only family, had leukemia and needed a huge sum for treatment. I broke down completely. He held me, told me to calm down, and said he would cover the costs. He brought me back to our home country and knelt before his father, begging him to save my brother. My brother once held his hand and asked if he would marry me. I remember the determination in Jason's eyes as he said I was the only person he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. But now, he was the one telling me to get out. Those 3 years abroad were the best of times. We had no money, living in a small, dark basement apartment. We were so poor we had to think twice before buying a head of cabbage. But every night, he would hold me and tell me stories about his life. We laughed together, cried together. Back then, we were everything to each other. After returning, he took over the family business. We had a house and money, and our worries disappeared, but we grew more and more distant, with less and less to say. 3 months ago, he started talking to me more often. I thought we were recapturing our old intimacy, but he didn't even realize how often he mentioned Angie. He always said she was smart, just like I used to be. I thought he just admired her. I never expected she would gradually replace me. Miss you. You've been diagnosed with severe depression. I hope you'll be proactive about your treatment. The doctor's words pulled me back to reality. A bitter smile touched my lips. I will cooperate with the treatment. I had been suffering from insomnia for days. Whenever I closed my eyes, I saw the desperate look in my brother's eyes as he fought for his life. I was afraid to sleep. I could only cry, whispering to the empty air. I'm sorry, your sister was useless. I couldn't save you. Miss you. I suggest you talk to your family. It would be best if someone could be with you at all times. With depression this severe, there's a high risk of suicidal thoughts. I shook my head and refused. I had no family left. As I walked out of the clinic, I ran into Angie. She wore a fake smile. Sarah, what a coincidence. Are you not feeling well either? I was a little dizzy today, and even though I said it was nothing, Jason insisted on stopping work to bring me to the hospital. She looked up and saw the psychiatry sign behind me, then gasped, covering her mouth. Sarah, don't tell me you're so upset about fighting with Jason that you need to see a psychiatrist. Her exaggeratedly surprised expression was nauseating. What's it to you? I had no patience for her act. I tried to walk around her, but she grabbed my wrist. Jason had appeared behind me at some point, his face terrifyingly dark. You're not well. Why didn't you tell me? I sneered. What? Is Mr. CEO so free that he has time to accompany an insignificant person like me to the doctor? A flash of anger crossed his eyes, but he suppressed it, gritting his teeth as he took my hand. Stop making a scene. You're my wife. How could you be insignificant? Come on, I'll take you home. Before I could pull away, Angie clutched her forehead and leaned against the wall. Jason, I feel so dizzy. Don't worry about me. You should take Sarah home first. Jason looked at my indifferent face and finally let go of my hand. Sarah, go home by yourself first. Don't wander off. Be good and wait for me at home. He helped Angie up and didn't look back at me once. Watching his retreating back, I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. For a moment, I almost blurted out that I was struggling, that I couldn't hold on much longer. Thank God I didn't. In his eyes, I was just an outsider he could cast aside at any moment. As I passed the obstetrics clinic, a young couple brushed past me. The man carefully shielded his wife with his arms, as if protecting a precious treasure. The love in their eyes was so intense it seemed to seep into their very bones. My eyes reddened. I once had a love that raw. It is because I once loved so deeply that leaving now feels like being flayed alive. I stared at the sleeping pills in my hand, and despair washed over me like a tide. I hid in a bathroom stall, popping the pills one by one and putting them in my mouth. For me, only death was a release. I didn't die. When I came to, I forced myself to throw up all the pills. I rushed to the sink, frantically splashing water into my mouth. I looked at my swollen eyes in the mirror. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Let's just say I've already died once. From now on, I will live for myself. My steps were unsteady as I went home in my own home. When my parents passed away, they left a small apartment for my brother and me. During the most difficult years, I had considered selling it. It was Jason who begged me not to. He said that with this apartment, I would always have a home. As he said, this tiny, 30-square-meter apartment had become my only sanctuary. No one had been here in a long time. It was covered in dust. I used every last bit of my strength to clean it. I was so exhausted that I collapsed on the sofa and fell asleep. I was woken by a ringing phone. It was Jason, his voice furious. Sarah, do you have any concept of time? Everyone is waiting for you. My mind was foggy. It took me a moment to remember that today was his father's birthday. I wanted to refuse, but I had to go. If it weren't for his father arranging for the best doctors back then, my brother wouldn't have survived as long as he did. Even with the money, one must repay kindness. It wasn't close to the family estate. I quickly washed my face and rushed out without even changing my clothes. When I arrived, out of breath, I found that Angie was there too. The table was laden with food. She and Jason were sitting next to his father, laughing and talking. The atmosphere was so harmonious. It was as if they were the real family. My face was blank as I placed the gift I had brought in front of his father. Angie stood up, looking flustered. Sarah, I'm sorry. I saw that uncle seemed a bit down, so I took your seat. I gave her a scornful smile. Angie, since you love taking things so much, how about I give you the title of Mrs. Chen as well? Jason stared at me like I was a madwoman. Sarah, what is the occasion today? Why are you acting crazy again? I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Mr. CEO, weren't you the one who wanted to break up? As I said, as you wish. I turned to leave, but Angie blocked my path. Sarah, calm down. Just because you're seeing a psychiatrist doesn't mean you can just attack anyone you see. Jason's father, who had been silent, sneered. Sarah, your parents really did a number on you. One sickly child on death's door, and a lunatic like you. That single sentence hit 3 of my sore spots. He had never liked me, always thinking I wasn't good enough for Jason. He saw my brother as a burden and had mocked him to my face more than once. I had always endured it silently for the sake of his help. Unfortunately, today I was done enduring. I pointed at him, my gaze fierce. You old bastard, say that again. He exploded with rage, grabbing a bowl and throwing it at me. I dodged, but a shard of porcelain still cut my cheek. Angie gasped, looking at me in disbelief. Sarah, how could you? You have no class. Her eyes were filled with glee, but she feigned concern, staring at the steaming dishes on the table. I couldn't help but laugh. You know what no class really looks like. Why don't I show a classy chick like you today? I dragged her to the table, grabbed her chin, and stuffed an entire plate of braised pork into her mouth, watching her wide, terrified eyes as she shook her head. I felt an incredible sense of release, but she didn't seem truly scared, so when she screamed and tried to hit me, I bent down, picked up a piece of broken porcelain, and held it to her neck. My smile was wild. Angie, did you know? The doctor said I have severe depression. In other words, even if I killed you today, I wouldn't be held responsible. Angie let out a terrified shriek and threw herself into Jason's arms, but Jason pushed her away, ignoring her trembling. He stared into my eyes, his voice shaking. Sarah, what are you talking about? What severe depression? I felt a wave of annoyance and gave him a fleeting glance. I didn't bother to explain and turned to leave. By the time Jason chased me downstairs, I was already in a taxi. He banged on the window, his eyes red, and begged me to get out. Sarah, don't be like this. You're scaring me. Sarah, I was wrong. Can we please just talk? I coldly told the driver to go. The car sped away, leaving Jason standing alone in the wind. I stayed home in a daze for 3 days. Thoughts of ending it all came and went, over and over. I had mild depressive tendencies ever since my brother got sick. 4 years. It was Jason who pulled me back from the brink, but eventually, he grew numb too, even telling me not to be so dramatic when I was sad. He called me countless times, and I rejected every one, just like he used to do to me. He came to my door, banging on it frantically. I leaned against it, covering my mouth to stifle my sobs. Through the door, he started texting me. He asked why I canceled the wedding. Was it because of his joke, or because he didn't answer my call that night? He said he knew he was wrong, but I shouldn't blame him. He had always been there for my brother, and for one mistake, I was throwing away 7 years. He demanded that I forgive him, saying my brother would be sad if he knew I was acting this way. The screen lit up and went dark in the quiet room. My knuckles turned white as I clutched the phone. That's not it. My brother, he had a chance to live. It wasn't me who threw away our love. It was him, who had already strayed in both body and soul. I replied with only 3 words. Don't be dramatic. He didn't contact me again. A man as proud as him would understand the deep sarcasm in my words. I decided to find a job. I didn't have much money left, and I needed something to distract me. I chose a restaurant and started working as a waitress. It was tiring work, sometimes standing all day. Only physical exhaustion could numb my emotional pain. The owner was a young, wealthy heir. I often found myself staring at him, because he reminded me so much of the old Jason. So when he blushingly asked if I had a boyfriend, I told him with a bitter smile that I had just gotten out of a failed relationship. He started to show interest, driving me home after work and occasionally taking me to parties with his friends, trying to cheer me up. I didn't reject his kindness, but we remained just friends. I never thought I would see Jason again, especially not at a trendy online famous restaurant he would have sneered at. He walked in, holding Angie's hand. As I was wiping a table, a strand of my hair fell over my eyes. The owner, standing beside me, gently tucked it away. I looked up with a smile, right into Jason's furious gaze. He looked enraged. His grip was so tight that Angie cried out in pain. Sarah, who is he? Did you break up with me for him? I didn't feel the need to explain. I ignored his questions. With a polite smile, I bowed slightly and continued wiping the table. My attitude clearly displeased him. He snatched the cloth from my hand and threw it on the floor. He wrapped an arm around my waist, and with a slight pull, I fell into his arms. Sarah, how dare you? You left me for someone like him. I struggled, but his grip only tightened. I looked up, and the coldness in my eyes made him freeze. Jason, let go of me. We're over. He acted as if he hadn't heard, and kissed me. A tear fell onto my cheek and trickled down my neck. Sarah, I don't agree. You can't just unilaterally declare us over. The once noisy restaurant fell silent. Everyone was watching the drama unfold, trapped in his arms. I glanced at Angie, who stood frozen nearby. The beautiful dress she was wearing was now wrinkled from her nervous fidgeting. Someone started clapping, and Angie's face grew paler. She gently tugged on his sleeve. Her voice was weak and tearful. Jason, don't. It's my birthday today. You promised. He yanked his hand away, his voice as cold as ice. Get lost. I'm talking to my wife. Who gave you the right to interrupt? Angie's face turned white. People started whispering and pointing at her. She trembled but still stubbornly held onto his sleeve. You promised you would take responsibility for me. I took the opportunity to break free and backed away. Seeing the disappointment in my eyes, he flew into a rage. He grabbed Angie by the collar and threw her aside. She crashed into a table, and the glasses on it shattered. When she struggled to her feet, everyone froze. Her face was a grotesque mask. Shards of glass were embedded in her skin, and blood streamed down her face. She looked around, her voice trembling. Jason, it hurts. After Angie was taken away in an ambulance, Jason stayed behind. The restaurant was empty, except for the 2 of us. I admit I was terrified. My eyes were wide with fear as I looked at him. He opened his arms and walked toward me, muttering, Sarah, don't be afraid. I'm here. I screamed. Stay back. Jason, don't come near me. He looked hurt but stopped. Sarah, what happened to us? I really didn't do anything to betray you. Please, believe me. I laughed coldly and showed him the video of him and Angie kissing. Are you going to tell me that's not you in the video? The fire in his eyes died down. replaced by undeniable panic. Sarah, it's not what you think. She seduced me. I lost control, but I swear, nothing more happened between us. I bent over, laughing until tears streamed down my face. So, what exactly do you consider more? He froze, trying to form a defense, but no words came out. Jason, you should know that once some things happen, there's no going back. We were together for 7 years. You got bored, you needed novelty, but you shouldn't have let my brother die for it. I looked him in the eye, my patience wearing thin. So please, stay away from me. The sight of you makes me sick. As I walked out, Jason followed, unwilling to give up. He wanted to explain more, but the disgust in my eyes stopped him. He continued to follow me until the owner stepped between us. Suddenly, the usually calm Jason snapped. He grabbed the owner's collar and shoved him, telling him to get lost. The owner fought back, and a punch landed on Jason's face. They started fighting like children. I tried to intervene, but they wouldn't stop. I found it all tedious and walked away. When I turned my back, they both stopped. They called my name at the same time, their voices hoarse. I turned back calmly and gave them a wave. Goodbye, and good riddance. I quit my job and decided to sell the apartment. I wanted a fresh start, to pursue the dreams I had left behind. I had come back before graduating because of my brother's illness. Now, with no ties left, I decided to return to school. I chose the same college I had attended before. The long flight was exhausting, but when I landed, I felt a sense of release I hadn't felt in years. I enjoyed my new, structured life. Everything felt like it was back on track. Unfortunately, this peace didn't last long. Jason appeared before me again. I hadn't seen him in 6 months. He looked haggard. The once vibrant young man now had faint lines around his eyes. I don't know how he found me. Seeing him standing at the school gate with a bouquet of flowers made me feel sick, but running away wasn't my style. After some thought, I walked toward him. When he saw me, the frustration on his face vanished. He offered me the flowers, but I coldly threw them on the ground. With red-rimmed eyes, he took out a delicate gift box and held it out to me. His expression was humble, almost pleading. Inside was a diamond necklace. He had once worked as a waiter for 2 whole months to buy it for me. I had deliberately left it behind when I left. Perhaps from the journey, the chain was tangled. Jason stubbornly tried to untangle the knots, but the more anxious he got, the more tangled it became. I took it from his hand, pulled it taut, and snapped the chain. When I tossed it back to him, my face was blank. Jason, a broken chain can't be mended, and a shattered mirror can't be made whole again. You understand that, don't you? So, go. Don't make me lose respect for you. Tears welled in his eyes. When he looked up, he met my indifferent gaze. He smiled sadly, all the life drained from him. Sarah, can I come to your place for a bit? I didn't answer and silently turned away. He followed me all the way to my apartment, but when I got to the door, I blocked his way. He stood there stubbornly, from day until night. Finally, my landlady couldn't take it anymore. She knocked on my door and, in broken English, tried to persuade me. Miss Sarah, he looked so sad. You are young, talk nicely, don't mischance. Defeated, I stepped aside and let him in. I ignored him and went about my business. He stood by the door, completely at a loss. Then his stomach growled. I sighed, opened the fridge, and asked him what he wanted to eat. Sarah, I want to have your tomato and egg noodles one more time. Back when we were abroad, vegetables were expensive. We could only afford the cheapest tomatoes and eggs. We ate a lot of tomato and egg noodles back then. As I cooked, he stood in the doorway, telling me everything that had happened since I left. He had taken over the company completely. His parents were planning to travel the world after the new year. Angie's face was ruined. He had given her a large sum of money to get treatment abroad. He heard she was scammed out of all of it and, unable to take the shock, jumped off a building. He said that after I left, he had a lot of time to think. He finally understood why I had left in disappointment. For all these years, although he was helping me, he subconsciously saw it as charity. He took all my sacrifices for granted. Now he understood that it was unfair to me. He said he was sorry for not being there when I needed him most. He had killed my hope and still expected me to love him unconditionally. Finally, he buried his face in his hands and sobbed. He said he couldn't accept it. They had 7 beautiful years together, and he had thrown it all away. He asked if I could give him another chance. He knew he was wrong. He reminded me that during those years when we only had each other, I had sworn to always be with him. I had meant it at the time. But time is a cruel enemy. It twists sweet memories into something unrecognizable and crushes sincere hearts. It makes promises forgotten and turns loved ones into monsters. I silently handed him the bowl of noodles. I had cooked them for too long. They were mushy and stuck together. I had forgotten the salt. He frowned after the first bite, but he didn't say anything. He quietly finished the entire bowl, even drinking all the broth. I think he understood my meaning. The beautiful past should remain in memory. To cling to it too tightly only leads to a painful end. He stood up with a smile and gave me a gentle hug. Goodbye, Sarah. Thank you for loving me. This time, I graduated without any interruptions. I found a job I loved and stayed in the city. I slowly began to forget the past, only occasionally seeing Jason's name when I browsed news from home. He was very capable, and his company grew larger and larger. I could barely remember what he used to look like. I thought that was how it would be, that we would forget each other. Until 2 years later, I received a video call from his mother. Jason was lying in a hospital bed, staring quietly at the camera. He was so thin he was almost unrecognizable. If not for his faint breathing, I would have thought he was already gone. His mother's eyes were red and swollen. She cried and begged me to come back and see him. He had stomach cancer, and it was already in the final stages. She said he kept repeating my name. He was in excruciating pain but was desperately holding on to see me one last time. After hanging up, my chest felt heavy, as if something was blocking my airway. I had never forgiven him, but seeing him in so much pain, it was a lie to say I wasn't upset. I took a leave of absence and booked a flight. 7 years is a long time. I couldn't just let him die with regrets. I would consider it the final chapter of our tragic love story. The day I left, the sky was gray and drizzling. It was just like the day we returned home together all those years ago. Only this time, what awaited me was the end of all love and hate. By the time I reached the hospital, Jason was barely holding on. He was skeletal, and the light in his eyes was gone. Only a bleak emptiness remained. He weakly raised a hand, gesturing for me to come closer. His voice was so low I had to lean in to hear him. He said, "Sarah, I'm sorry, I failed you in this life. Let's not meet in the next." He also said, "I'm leaving the company to you. Please, it's the only thing I have left to give you." After I tearfully nodded, he had the lawyer, who was waiting nearby, give me the papers to sign. My hand trembled as I held the pen. My tears smudged my signature. Just as I finished, his mother burst in. She pulled me to the floor, hissing through her teeth, "Sarah, my son is dying, and you're still after his company. You're such a bitch. As long as I'm alive, you can forget it." The 60-something-year-old woman was on top of me, clawing at me. Jason struggled to sit up, his voice urgent. "Mom, please, just let me go in peace." Jason's death was not peaceful. He vomited a lot of blood, staining the entire bed red. He was buried not far from my brother. On the day of his funeral, his mother knelt before me, crying and begging me to visit him often. She and his father had decided to immigrate. They had all of Jason's money and property, enough to live out their days in comfort. I never saw them or heard from them again. Not seeing each other again was the final respect we could offer. After settling everything, I took over the company. It was difficult at first, but thankfully, most of the remaining staff had been helped by Jason in some way. They all supported me. The company gradually got back on its feet. The only surprise was Angie. Seeing someone I thought was long dead appear before me was an unimaginable shock. Her face was terrifying, even with a mask on. The exposed skin was covered in scars. She looked haggard, at least 10 years older than before. It was the middle of summer, but she was wearing long sleeves and pants. When she moved, I could see bruises on her arms. She was holding the hand of a small, ragged boy, who peeked out shyly from behind her. She awkwardly pushed the boy forward, telling him to greet me. She said that after she lost all her money, she had wanted to die. She was on a rooftop, ready to jump, when a man grabbed her from behind. She married him, thinking she would have a stable life, but right after they married, she found out she was pregnant. Counting back, it was from the last time she had been with Jason. She said she was sorry for lying to me back then, but I no longer cared. He was gone. What did a lie matter now? I couldn't exactly dig up his grave and ask him why he had lied. I studied the little boy behind her and suddenly smiled. There was a hint of a young Jason in his eyes. Whether he was his son or not, there was no way to know, and no need to find out. Angie knelt before me and begged me for some money. She rolled up her sleeves, revealing arms covered in scars. She said her life after marriage was a nightmare. Her husband would beat them for the slightest reason. She had no other choice but to secretly return to our country with her son. If they had stayed, she was sure he would have beaten her to death. I sighed and took a bank card from my drawer, tossing it at her feet. There was 100,000 in it. It was all I could give her. I told her to take the money and get out. I didn't feel sorry for her, but the child was so young and was suffering with her. The money was enough for her to start a small business and support them, but I never wanted to see her again. If she ever came to me again, I would have her arrested for extortion. With tears in her eyes, she kowtowed to me 3 times. She took her child's hand and left without looking back. I spent the following years focusing on the company. I learned to enjoy life. When I wasn't busy, I would travel. There were many suitors, and I wasn't opposed to dating good men, but love was no longer the center of my life. I had too much to do. I made many good friends. We had fun together. My most recent trip was with a new group of girlfriends. We pitched a tent in a beautiful spot by a mountain and a lake. We sat around, taking pictures of each other, and then complaining about how bad our photography skills were. Amidst the groans, someone said, "If only we had boyfriends to take pictures for us." Someone pointed to the tent across from us, where a few handsome young men were raising their coffee cups to us. We looked at each other and started a game of rock paper scissors. The loser had to go ask for their contact information. We laughed and joked, happier than I had been in a long time. In the distance, a bird circled in the sky. The air was filled with a sense of freedom. It turns out that living just for yourself is so wonderfully freeing.